What are some of your unexplainable and creepy experiences? When I was a child, I had a dream that has stuck with me ever since. In the dream, there was a building with a huge set of stairs leading up to two separate doors on either side. My dad and I sat on the stairs, watching my sister and mother walk into the door on the right. Immediately, I felt like their lives were in danger, so I walked up the stairs and went into the door on the right without my dad's knowledge. I was immediately face to face with a conductor whose flesh was falling off its bones, hair dangling from its scalp, and eyes popping out of its sockets while conducting a loud unseen orchestra. I burst into tears, screamed, and ran out of the building, passing my dad. That's where the dream ended. Years later, when I was in the 8th grade, my band class won a trip to Mackinac Island. We arrived at our hotel on Michigan's mainland and made our way to the ferry. Upon landing on the island, my group opted for bikes since cars weren't allowed on the island, and we started strolling through the streets. Then I saw it, the building from my dream. It had huge steps and two doors on either side, just as creepy looking in real life as it was in my dream. I stopped, not caring that my friends were riding ahead of me. I couldn't believe it. It was real. It had a sign that read The Haunted Theater. It was a haunted house attraction, but I hated haunted houses, so why was this thing in my dream? The trip continued with weird deja vu sitting in the back of my head. When I finally got home, I asked my mom if we had gone to Mackinac Island when I was a kid, and she said yes. Then I asked if she and my sister had gone into a creepy little haunted house, and she said yes, they did. I proceeded to tell her that all these years, I thought it was a bad dream, but she laughed and confirmed that it did happen, and I did get scared out of my mind trying to follow them into the attraction. Reality felt a little bent after that lull. It's amazing how our brains can store such vivid memories, even if we don't realize it at the time. One time, when I was 15 years old, I had a dream that I was lying on my back, looking up through the inside of a car, and a woman walked past, stopped to look down at me, and gave me a smile. It was a strange and vivid dream that stuck with me, but I didn't think much of it at the time. Years later, when I was in college studying mechanical engineering, I was tasked with stripping a Mini for parts. As I was working underneath the car, I suddenly looked up and saw the same woman from my dream smiling down at me. I was shocked to see her in person, especially since she happened to be in my class. We later had lunch together, and during our conversation, she mentioned feeling a strange sensation while looking down at me when I was under the car. It was then that I told her about my dream, and to my surprise, she revealed that she had had the same dream, but from the other angle. It was a surreal experience to meet someone from a dream that I had many years prior, and to have that dream be shared by someone else. It made me wonder if there was a deeper connection between us or if it was simply a coincidence. Regardless, it was an unforgettable moment that I still think about from time to time. It's interesting to think about how dreams can come back to us years later and how they can be interpreted in different ways. Shortly after my husband and I got married, he was taking a shower in our en-suite bathroom while I was in the laundry room. He yelled for me, and when I went to see what he needed, he asked what I was just doing in there. I told him I had been in the laundry room, but he said he saw a woman through the shower curtain. He made me promise not to tell anyone because he thought they would think he was crazy. I didn't say a word, but a few weeks later, my sister and nephews came to stay for the weekend. The youngest was about 4 years old at the time, and my husband went somewhere with his dad and brother after dark. My nephew was watching TV while my sister and I were in the kitchen, and he said, "I thought you said Uncle was gone." We asked him what he meant, and he told us that he saw someone come through my bedroom door. Needless to say, I didn't go back to our room until my husband came home, and we then told my sister about the woman in the bathroom. Creepy. Prior to our current home, my husband and I rented a house where unusual things began happening. One day, while my husband's phone was sitting on the table, it suddenly flew off and did a flip before landing on the floor. This was just the beginning of several strange occurrences. Once, when I was home alone sitting on the bed, I put my phone down to use the bathroom. When I returned, my phone was gone. I searched everywhere, eventually finding it inside the duvet cover that was securely fastened. These events continued until we got a cat, which seemed to make them stop. Looks like the ghosts were allergic to cats. LOL. During a visit to my family a few towns away, I had an intense feeling that I had to find my brother, who had been struggling with a difficult path. I searched for him for hours, looking around town at nearby ponds, lakes, bridges, and streets, but didn't find him. The next morning, the police informed my parents that my brother had passed away. Oh my gosh, that is so tragic. It's like you had a premonition about your brother's passing. I'm so sorry for your loss. I used to work in an office building that was rumored to be haunted. Some of my coworkers had reported strange noises and unexplained events, but I had never experienced anything myself. One day, I was working late and the building was almost empty. I was sitting at my desk, typing away, when I heard footsteps coming down the hall. I assumed it was just one of my coworkers, so I didn't think much of it. The footsteps got louder and closer, and I waited for someone to appear in the doorway, but nobody did. The footsteps stopped right outside my door, and then I heard a voice whisper my name. It was a woman's voice, and it sounded like it was coming from right behind me. I turned around, but there was nobody there. I got up and checked the hallway, but it was empty. I was pretty freaked out at this point, but I tried to convince myself that it was just my imagination. However, when I went back to my desk, I saw that one of the drawers was open. I knew I hadn't opened it, so I started to feel like maybe there was something to the rumors of the building being haunted. I finished up my work as quickly as possible and left the building. I never worked late again after that, and I always made sure to leave before the sun went down. I still don't know what caused the footsteps and the voice, but it was definitely one of the creepiest experiences of my life. About 12 years ago, I was on a road trip with some friends back from a Blink-182 concert in La. We were driving through Arizona on a 33-hour road trip back to Ohio, just because one of the guys loved Blink-182 so much that he convinced us to go. I was driving at the time when this bizarre incident happened. It was the middle of the night, and we found ourselves stuck in a traffic jam behind a bunch of cars waiting for construction work to finish. As we sat there, joking and laughing with each other, we began to wonder why we hadn't moved for so long. We could see the yellow lights on the construction vehicles rotating and the red light from the rear car lights, but there was no movement. After waiting for what seemed like ages, I got out of the car to investigate. I walked through the orange cones, only to discover that there was nobody in the construction vehicles. They were all just sitting there, running, but there was no sign of the drivers or workers. When I looked around at the other cars, I realized that there was nobody in them either. We had been sitting in a traffic jam in the middle of nowhere in the middle of the night, behind a bunch of cars and construction vehicles that were on, but nobody was in them. I jumped back into the car and we took off as fast as we could. Even now, I have no idea what that was all about. It wasn't a hallucination, as all four of us saw the same thing. I didn't stop to check for tracks or anything. We just got the hell out of there. That is some Stephen King Langoliers kind of stuff. I've always been skeptical of unexplained or creepy occurrences, but there's one strange thing that keeps happening to me. My older brother's name is Chris, and we look quite similar. When we were growing up, our family members would often mix up our names and call me Chris by mistake. Now that I travel frequently for work, I find it incredibly odd that no matter where I am in the world, people constantly get my name wrong and call me Chris. It's a weekly occurrence that's been happening for years, even though these people have no knowledge of my brother or his name. It's a strange and unexplained phenomenon that I can't wrap my head around. Whenever someone mistakenly calls me by a different name, it's almost always Jennifer for some reason. It's a strange coincidence that makes me wonder if it's somehow related to a past life of mine.